All right. Well, want to bring this meeting to order for the City of Iowa City Work Session on December 12, 2023. It's just after 4 p.m. And our first agenda item, well, welcome to your City Hall to everyone in the room. The first agenda item is a joint meeting with the Planning and Zoning Commission. So I see 4 of them before us today. So welcome to each of you. Yes. And then I know that the topic that we're talking about is of interest to a lot of people in the room here as well. Maybe we'll just start just by just going around and introducing all of the commissioners, just giving us your name.
Maggie Elliott.
Susan Craig.
Billy Townsend.
And Mike Hench.
Great. And from the council, we really appreciate the work that you all do, and realize that this is an extra time that you all are serving the public even now, so thank you for that. Now, you're probably fully aware that the council wanted to have a discussion, and I didn't know if any of you wanted to maybe start us out just to have, sure.
Well, I was in the minority. It was a 4-3 vote.
Okay.
And so I believe Commissioner Craig was in the majority, so if you want to start off.
You know, we had a long discussion about this. We had a lot of public input at the meeting about it. The staff recommendation was not to change the height limit. I thought their arguments were persuasive. I think that, if I can get this right, RNS 12 zone has protections built into it that I feel were put there to protect the integrity of the neighborhoods, and that if they use the tool they have, you're not going to end up with a building that is so out of keeping with the overall look and feel of the neighborhood that it's put into. If you look at all the single-family residential zoning options, they're all at 35 feet. And I didn't think it was a compelling argument to say, well, if we put this at 27, it's going to save the neighborhood, which is the message I felt I was getting from people. I feel that that designation already has tools built into it for that purpose, and we didn't need to make the zoning code more complicated than it is already. And I feel that those are the arguments that the 4 of us who voted that way, that why put something to fix something that we have another tool to fix and make it more complicated for all the people who have to enforce the zoning code.
And I voted for the 27 height limit for 2 reasons. One, I think it stabilizes the neighborhood, that there are a few houses within the neighborhood that aren't covered by the conservation or the historic district, so they will have no protection. They have no protection. So that was, I think that the older neighborhoods are fragile, and a few bigger buildings in the area will really destabilize the neighborhood. So that was one of the reasons. The other reason was, I think the height limitation actually helps our goal of affordable housing, that it removes the incentive for developers, specifically real estate developers, for the university folks to come into the neighborhood. So I thought it helped us with affordable housing.
Yeah, and I guess my vote not to change it from 27 to 35 is because that's an older neighborhood. There are a lot of rentals in that neighborhood. Homes that could be bought and torn down and turned into huge rentals, which would not be affordable. The houses there now are Iowa City's not affordable, period. So let's not fool ourselves with that. But the things there are considerably reasonable. But if we give that 35-foot hike to that neighborhood, I think it leaves you open to more contractors coming in, buying up the homes, and putting in big units.
I actually have my notes I wrote the night of the meeting on this one. So just a little bit of background about RNS 12 zones. The issue is, the question was to reduce maximum allowable height in RNS 12 zones from 35 to 27 feet. And the purpose of the RNS 12 zones is to stabilize the single-family residential character of neighborhoods, and it allows for single-family and duplexes within those zones. RNS 12 zones were created in 1993, and the boundaries largely have not changed since 2007. And there's really 4 primary reasons why I voted against, why I'm in favor of reducing from 35 to 27 feet. Currently, properties within an historic or conservation overlay zone are largely protected due to the regulations of the Iowa City Historic Preservation Handbook on demolition and new construction. The new structures, if they're created, are limited to 1.5 and 2 stories, and this protects the neighborhood from the 35-foot height in the supermajority of the citywide RNS 12 zones. If you look at the numbers, the tables, most of the RNS 12 zones fall within a historic or conservation overlay zone. So that is a question of consistency with me, that the minority of the homes will have to be following the same rules as the majority of the homes. Also, I believe homeowners should enjoy some predictability in their fundamental neighborhood integrity and its character. And also, if you look on the north side in particular, the lots are much narrower than throughout the rest of the community. Another thing that was a really big issue with me is Robert Miklo. He's our retired senior planner. And in 2005, during the zoning code rewrite, that's when the RNS 12 zone was re-examined, and he said, we chose not to propose a reduction in the maximum height so as not to hinder walkout basements on sloping lots. There's just very few numbers of parcels where that would be an issue. So it looks like that was seriously considered reducing the height a long time ago, and because of those very few exceptions, the 35-foot was maintained. I think he regrets that recommendation at this time. And also, the recently approved South District form-based code restricts houses to 2.5 stories, so that largely parallels the 27 feet. So again, it's a question of consistency because of the historic and conservation overlay zones, the South District form-based code zones. They're all currently essentially limited to that 27 feet. So it's a consistency issue. And then lastly, the S in RNS 12 is the word stabilize. Its purpose is to stabilize the number of owner-occupied affordable homes. In the north side in particular, that neighborhood, the character of that is there's affordable homes, largely at this time, although the trend is going against that, of having owner-occupied homes within walking distance of downtown. And so we want to stabilize the neighborhood, the character, the fundamental integrity of that neighborhood, so we do have a neighborhood where it all doesn't turn into just development speculation in rental homes. And those were my reasons for voting for the reduction from 35 to 27 feet.
Thank you all for your responses. Appreciated that. Just want to remind the council that this is item number 8A at our formal meeting tonight, and we'll be taking a vote at that time. So certainly we can engage in conversation, but as always, we will want to wait for the public to come before us before we make our final decision. So just wanted to make mention of if people are ready to give a position statement, we know that we're going to be hearing from others in the community. But this is an opportunity, if anyone has any questions for our commissioners, certainly we can ask those at this time.
This might be me going into the weeds a little bit and creating a pop quiz, but I'm trying to clarify my own notes. From the memo, it looks like there are 47 Northside properties not protected by historic or conservation overlay. Does that
It's a very low
sound-
number, so
It's
that's.
a very
like
low number.
15%.
Right, okay. That,
Either community-wide or Northside neighborhood-wide. I'm not sure where I got that 15%, but it's a very small number.
okay, thank you. Yeah, that jives with what I have.
What I will say is that I actually watched your video, so a lot of the conversation that you all had, I appreciated, kind of the dialogue that you all engaged in. I really don't have any questions because you all made your points very clear as to why you were supporting or not supporting. And it's kind of complicated because, it's supporting 35 feet or supporting 27 feet. Our agenda item is a little complicated. But I think at the end of the day, I hear the arguments for and against, and when I hear you say, Mike, about the South District form-based code, of course, predictability is something that I think happens in the South District, and the form-based code is what we're somewhat been leaning towards throughout the entire community, and predictability for not only the residents but the developers, staff, council members, and commissioners is something that we talked about when it came down to form-based code. So there will definitely be a few questions that I'll be asking staff later today. But I appreciate you all coming and sharing this time with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is review of Chauncey and Rise processes to inform future 21 South Linn plans. And I see Rachel Kilberg before us.
Let
Welcome.
everyone get settled a little bit.
Okay. Great.
Okay. Well, good evening, Mayor and City Council. Rachel Kilberg-Viley, Economic Development Coordinator. I'm going to be leading the presentation tonight, but we'll invite Jeff to jump in if he has additional comments as we kind of go through this. So as you all know, we the city, acquired 21 South Linn Street in August with the intent to facilitate private redevelopment at that site. So really our goal just in today's work session is to kind of kick off this redevelopment process just by reviewing past projects that we have had experience facilitating that kind of development. The Chauncey and Rise buildings are two of those examples of past public-private redevelopments that we've engaged in. So those are two examples that we're going to focus on today. But first, we'll kind of review the history of the 21, kind of the recent history of the 21 South Linn site and how we came to acquire it. Talk a little bit about what you might expect during that developer selection process, and then we'll move into reviewing those past project processes for the Rise and the Chauncey before we talk a little bit about moving forward and what the process might look like for 21 South Linn. So just to kind of orientate you again and remind you of the site that we're talking about, 21 South Linn is the now vacant lot at the corner of Washington and Linn Street, so directly across from the Senior Center on that Linn Street side, and then across from kind of Daydream Comics, Chop House, the Englert on that Washington Street side. This is just a street level view. You can see it kind of backs the Studio 13 entrance in that alley, and then adjacent to some of those smaller retail businesses on the west side. Actually, Redmond is making a cameo in this Google image screenshot, which is kind of funny. But funny enough, this 21 South Linn was actually home of the former City Hall building. So that's where City Hall stood, very cool looking buildings until 1962 when it was demolished. And then it served as drive-through banking. I think a number of institutions, or at least a couple perhaps, had operated there, but then in more recent years, it really just served as a surface parking lot for the downtown area. So just kind of a quick review of how, again, we came to acquire the site. So in October of 2021, U.S. Bank was selling the lot, and CA Ventures, which is a national student housing developer, purchased the property. They moved to demolish that existing building and the surface lot in February of 2022 to get it prepped for their development. In communicating with them at this time, it was clear to the city that they didn't intend to request any sort of financial incentives from us for their redevelopment project. There was no rezoning, so really didn't anticipate a heavy level of involvement from the city. By September of 22, they had a site plan approved for a mixed-use 13-story building, about 266 student housing units with some ground-level retail and commercial space approved. And then that project, seemingly ready to move forward, just never did. By the spring, we heard that they did not intend to move forward with the project, and actually we're going to be seeking to sell both the property and the building plan. So at that time, then the city sought to acquire that property. You all, City Council, approved that purchase agreement in July of 2023, and then we officially closed on the property in August of 2023. So just thinking about the future of the site, in the short term, did want to mention that we do have a couple of major reconstruction projects happening in the downtown this coming spring. So the Dubuque Street reconstruction project, kind of all within this block, and then we'll be beginning those exterior improvements on the senior center around that same time period. Obviously, both have the potential to kind of disrupt some of the downtown traffic flow, parking, and just those businesses. So we could anticipate that this kind of vacant lot as it stands now might be good staging area for some of those projects, just to help mitigate some of those traffic and parking impacts, at least in the short term. And then, of course, over the long term, the job before us is to kind of identify what that future development will be and what the future use of that site will be. So that kind of brings me to just kind of what we see as maybe that general overview for redevelopment process for 21 South Linn. We're kind of kicking things off tonight with just, again, reviewing how we've approached private redevelopment projects in the past on land that we've owned. After this evening discussion, then we anticipate that we'd be able to start to develop a public engagement plan, get that approved by you all, execute that plan, compile the feedback, bring it back to you, and hopefully have that wrapped up by the summer so that we can really move into that phase of kind of goal setting and identifying what we want in that RFP. Again, getting some City Council final approval on that RFP with a goal of getting that issued by September, October of 2024. And then, of course, after that, we would move into actually reviewing those RFP responses and any additional public input that might be needed at that time. So as we kind of start to get into some of these examples, one thing that I just wanted to maybe put on your radar is just to think a little bit about what that balance might be, and you'll see this in the examples that we'll talk about ahead, but what that balance is between making sure that we're obtaining sufficient detail as we move through the redevelopment process from the respondents to the RFP, and also ensuring that, you know, what we're asking of them at that phase is appropriate for the phase that we're in. So it's really reasonable to expect, it's what this kind of inverted triangle attempts to show, that as that developer, as the field of developer candidates kind of narrows, those proposals will likely become more detailed, more refined as we move through the process. So you'll see in these examples ahead that many of these developers probably spent thousands of dollars putting their initial proposals together. So they do have some skin in the game too, and again, it's important that we have the information that we need to make decisions while also recommending, you know, or recognizing what we're asking of them at that time. So maybe just a quick example to kind of demonstrate this. So let's say it's a sustainability feature that we're talking about. in the initial RFP response, the respondent may say, these are some of the LEED standards that we would strive to include in our project. Then as you move into that finalist stage, they might decide to, or they may then commit to a certain LEED certification that they would obtain. And then by the time you reach that development agreement, it should be really clearly laid out if they intend to obtain that LEED certification, and even maybe what specific points they would anticipate scoring in that. So just to kind of give you an idea, you'll see more examples ahead. So that brings us to our first example, which is the RISE. The RFP for this project was included in your information packet, entitled as the Court and Linn Street project, because that's the site which now, of course, holds the RISE student housing and Hyatt Hotel. So as we go through this, I'm just going to call it the RISE RFP, simply because that is what we now know it as, and hopefully then everyone knows what we're talking about. So a quick review of that timeline. So for the RISE, that RFP was issued in May of 2014, and then responses were due in July of 2014. After those responses were received, in which 6 proposals were received, a review committee reviewed those and selected 3 that they then recommended to City Council. And then in November of 2014, Council approved those 3 recommended proposals, plus they pulled in 1 additional proposal from those 6 that the review committee hadn't recommended. And then all of those 4 semifinalists were invited to present and do a little Q&A with the City Council at a work session in November of 2014. So following those presentations, the City Council narrowed the field down to 2 finalists, and then at that point, they actually requested a refined proposal from those 2 finalists. So staff kind of provided some feedback to those finalists. They were asked to submit a revised proposal, given a couple months to do that. And then again, the review committee came back in to help review those revised proposals and develop a preferred proposal recommendation for City Council. So that came back to City Council in March of 2015. And then at that point, City Council went ahead and approved that preferred proposal, and they also selected a runner-up at that time. And then after that point, they moved into developing and approving the development agreement, making that land transfer, and then the developer was able to secure their building permits, get their site plans approved, all the typical steps that they needed to get to the point of beginning construction. So what we're focusing on today is just what I have outlined in that red box, really just that developer selection process. So as I mentioned, that RFP for the RISE is included in your information packet, but here are just a couple of pages that might be of interest as you kind of think about what an RFP might look like. So I'll go over a lot of these examples over the next several slides, but just kind of wanted to identify a few of these in case you wish to refer back to them. So first up, this is an example of just some general community goals that the council had identified in that RISE RFP. So as you can see, these are high level. They provide that overarching kind of guiding direction for the applicants. And this would these kind of goals would be established during that RFP development phase. So you would kind of identify what objectives you hope to achieve and include those general guiding goals as well as kind of more specific project goals. So this is an example of the project goals that were included in the RISE RFP. And again, these just provide a little bit more detail for those RFP respondents to kind of help craft their proposal and hopefully meet one or more, meet as many of these goals as they can. So I won't go through all of these, but just a couple of examples that I'll maybe call out. So that first one there just identifies that the proposal be consistent with established master plans, in this case, the Downtown and Riverfront Crossings Master Plan. It's linked in there so that the applicants can review that and make sure that what they're putting forward is in line with that broader vision. Jumping down to number 5, here they identify a minimum amount of office space square footage that they'd like to see in the proposal. And then in kind of 6 to 8, they get into any parameters that they have for residential uses that would be proposed. So they identify that they'd like to target permanent residents. They kind of identify that desired mix of workforce housing and affordable units, and just a couple other details in there. So then on page kind of 9 to 10 of that RISE RFP, you would find information that was included about the zoning parameters for this site. So again, this is just to help respondents understand upfront what uses are allowed there, and then any important requirements that would be required alongside such uses. So here you can see the photo on the left. There give examples of uses that would be allowed with the CB5. It provides for a wide variety, which are listed there. And then you can see, just give some quick bullet points on those setback, building height requirements, including the density bonus in this district, and then any anticipated parking requirements. So all of this information would be provided by staff based on that current zoning designation. Again, just so the respondents understand kind of upfront what would be allowed here. So also, as they would be developing that RFP, council would need to establish kind of a review process, and this should just be kind of a general guiding framework for how projects or proposals would be evaluated. So really the goal of this is just so that both the council staff as well as the respondents, the community, any other stakeholders just have a transparent, consistent process that they can rely on moving forward. So this is an example of the review process that was included in the RISE RFP. You'll see they kind of built in a little bit of flexibility for themselves while maintaining that guiding framework for how the review would work going forward, also recognizing until you see kind of the quantity and quality of what those proposals are, you may not necessarily know exactly how that review will go going forward. And then this RFP had actually also included scoring criteria, pretty specific scoring criteria. So I'll show that on the next couple slides. That first one simply gets to the fact that they've submitted everything they need to. The second one, developer experience and capabilities. You can see this criteria kind of gets to helping the staff and council understand, what types of projects the developer has executed in the past, what's their approach, their philosophy, do they have the ability to pull off the type of redevelopment they're proposing, and then as we move into number 3, market and economic viability of the project. These criteria kind of should demonstrate that the developer understands the landscape, the goals of the site. They've maybe done their due diligence just to ensure that their proposal is a good fit and would succeed in our local market, and then just that they have a sound financial standing and a realistic financing plan. The next two, long-term fiscal benefits. So this includes things like that initial proposed purchase price, projected tax revenue, other revenue they might generate, jobs created, and then that last one there is whether there would be any negative impact on adjacent properties. And then the fifth one is whether the project furthers city goals. So here they kind of harken back to those master plan, that downtown riverfront crossings master plan that had been referenced earlier in the RFP. And I think generally as you look at these criteria, they did a good job of maintaining consistency with the other goals, objectives, and site requirements that were identified earlier in the RFP. So you kind of see that continuity, and I think it's just a good practice example. And then that last one's just a little bit of a catch-all, but you can see here they even included the scoring at this stage in the RFP. And then this is just a summary of the submittal requirements that were requested in the RISE RFP. So if you want to see the more detailed list, I'd point you to page 12 of that RFP. Again, that was included in your information packet. But this list should just give you kind of a good idea of what in general is both important to ask for in the RFP and, again, reasonable to expect would be included in initial proposal. So again, this would be something that you all would approve during that RFP kind of development stage in the process. So just a couple things, obviously a description about that development group, what their past experience is, their financial capacity, details about the project, the financing plan, budget, some conceptual visualizations. We'll get into some examples that show you what this actually looks like when they submit their proposal. So that's kind of a look at what that RFP or that request for proposals might look like. And then this is how that review process went in the case of the RISE. So that RFP was issued May 30th of 2014, and then it was due back July 14th of 2014. So that's about a 45-day response period, which we think is probably a minimum, a good number. After those proposals were received, in which case, as I mentioned, there were 6 received, a review committee went ahead, reviewed those. They recommended 3 semifinalists to present to City Council. City Council approved those 3, brought in 1 more, and then a month later, those 4 semifinalists were invited in. They presented to City Council, did a little bit of Q&A, and then the City Council was able to narrow the field down from those 4 to 2 finalists in December of 2014. Again, at that time, they requested refined proposals. Staff provided feedback to those 2 finalists in order to develop that refined proposal, given a couple months to do that. And then in February of 2015, that review committee came back, reviewed those refined proposals, recommended a preferred proposal, which City Council approved in March of 2015. So as you kind of look at this review process, you can see at which stages, council consideration and approvals were happening, and at which stages staff was kind of working with or facilitating with the developer to help kind of move them to that next phase of consideration. In the next couple of slides, I'm going to actually get into examples of what an actual response to the RFP looked like. So in this case, I'm just going to show examples from the RISE proposal, which was actually submitted by CA Ventures, since that was the successful proposal. And again, in this process, since 6 applicants submitted their initial proposal and a few were later asked to submit a more refined version, I'm actually going to show examples of kind of that initial versus revised, so you can kind of see, again, how that changed over the course of the process. So this is an example. I don't expect you to be able to read all of this or anything like that, but just to kind of, I'll just call out a few things, just again, give you a general overarching idea. So on the left-hand side is what was some screenshots from their initial proposal, and there you get some kind of narrative descriptions of the project. You get some high-level descriptions of uses that would be included in the project. And then in this case, they plan to have a hotel incorporated in the project, and so they had some letters of interest from hotels who might be interested in partnering. And then on the right-hand side, the revised proposal, that's where you really start to see those details kind of sharpen up. So here they've included specific square footage allocations between the different uses, retail, office, residential, hotel, and then they have the residential units broken out by unit mix, 1, 2, 3 bedroom, and affordability. And then they have a more refined list of hotels, hotel operators, and other project partners who they expect to engage. So obviously, there's still some changes from that revised proposal to what is included in a final development agreement, but again, this just gives you kind of a general idea of what you can expect as you move through the process. Here's another example, like I gave earlier on sustainability features. So in that initial proposal, in this example, the RISE developers had proposed using certain LEED practices and described how their project would encourage pedestrian mobility. But then by the time they got to that revised proposal, you see a much more detailed list of energy efficiency, sustainability features, and then a stronger commitment to obtain a LEED Silver rating. And then it's kind of cut off in the photo, but they actually include kind of that rating scorecard and where they anticipate the point allocation would be. Concept renderings are also kind of where you're more likely to see that detail get refined as you go on. So here in that initial proposal, you get a generally good idea of what the building form and scale will be. But then as you move into the revised proposal, you get kind of that prettier picture. You get a better idea of what the architectural features will be, and in general, just how the development would fit into that surrounding environment. Here's just another example from the aerial. Again, you can kind of see how it shapes up into more of what actually came to fruition with the project we have today. And then this is an example just from their initial proposal on the RISE. These are just some general site layouts that they had included. They have some conceptual square footages. So to compare and contrast, in this middle photo, they show a typical floor plan with unit sizes, and it just shows residential and hotel units. But then by that refined proposal, which you can see on this slide, then you actually get a floor plan for each floor. So then they start to bring in and show how those different commercial, office, residential amenity spaces would also be incorporated on those floor plans. And then on the site layout, you start to get a little bit more detail with proposed setbacks. And again, just a more refined concept that obviously is more similar to what we have today. So in the case of the RISE, the developer was not seeking any city financial assistance, so there was not a gap financing request in this proposal, but they were able to include an estimated budget, pro forma. They had included what they expected to generate in terms of tax revenue. You can see in that project summary screenshot, they included kind of what their proposed uses would be in terms of hotel rooms and units, and about a 3,500 square foot for retail. We'll compare that with the next slide, where then you start to get a lot more detailed versions. So here they have much more refined square footage numbers. You know, they double the amount that they're allocating to retail. You see that 25,000 come in for office space, and then they're able to even provide what they anticipate the commercial lease rates and the hotel rates would be, as well as on the residential side, they have that unit mix and affordability mix more fully fleshed out. So you start to get a better picture here that helps their numbers sharpen up. And then one of the big differences here too between that initial and refined proposal was they'd initially proposed a purchase offer of $5 million, and then in the refined they bumped that up to $6.5 million. Here's just one more example of how that tax projection and analysis may be refined as that proposal itself is refined. So of course, as they understand better what their uses are going to be. So those are kind of examples of the proposal responses. So you've seen what the RFP might look like, what the responses might look like. Kind of we already reviewed what that review process looks like. And then really after that developer is selected, you move into that more, I don't know what the word is, like traditional redevelopment phase. So again, in this case, they hadn't requested any TIF. So they were able to move much more quickly from that developer selection process to a development agreement. So you can see at the bottom there, the total time from when that RFP was issued to when they selected a developer was about 10 months. And then from when the RFP was issued to the development agreement was about 14 months. So that's a pretty quick turnaround. And after that development agreement was approved, land transfer was completed, building site plans approved. In this case, they sought a density bonus in the Riverfront Crossings District, and then were able to pull their permits and begin construction. But just kind of keeping in mind and providing a little context about, what that timeline is going to look like. It does take a long time. And here you see, even in this case where they were able to quickly move to a development agreement, from when the RFP was issued to when the construction was completed, it was still a 5-year process. And almost all processes will probably have unanticipated delays at one point or another. So just keeping in mind that it is a little bit longer of a process. So that's the RISE, and then we're going to move into our second example, which is the Chauncey. So again, this is included in your information packet as the College and Gilbert Street redevelopment. Just like the RISE, I'm just going to call it the Chauncey RFP, just so we all know what we're talking about. So again, here's just a quick breakdown on that timeline. August of 2012, the RFPs were issued. They were due back about a month later in September, so here you get a little bit shorter of a response period. Again, a review committee was involved. 10 proposals were received, and of those 10, that review committee recommended 5 to come and present to City Council. Those presentations occurred in November of 2012, and then kind of around that same time, the city had hired the National Development Council, or NDC, which is a third-party entity to do a bit of preliminary financial analysis on those semifinalist proposals that were received. Based on all of that and the presentations and public input, then council was able to narrow that field down to 3 finalists, and then at that time, they didn't request full refined second versions of proposals, but they just asked staff to go back and get a little more information on questions or gaps that they saw in those. And then in January of 2013, council evaluated those 3 finalists and selected a preferred proposal. So after that stage, again, in this project, there was city financial incentives involved, so we brought NDC back in to help conduct some financial analysis and technical assistance. Just negotiations on that development agreement occurred, and then because they were requesting that TIF, it moved through the City Council Economic Development Committee. By June of 2015, City Council had approved that development agreement, and then the building permits were issued and construction began in October of 2017. So just like the RISE, kind of just that area that's circled in red is what we're going to talk about today, which is the developer selection piece. Again, here are just a few kind of pages of interest from that RFP. We're going to review a lot of these in the coming slides, but just as a reference, if you would like to go back and look at any of those in the actual RFP document. So just like the RISE, in that RFP development stage, the staff and council had identified goals, both general kind of overarching community goals as well as project goals. So this is an example of what they included for kind of downtown goals. And again, this is just so that those respondents would understand, how it was envisioned that this project would fit in with that larger downtown environment. So just an example that I circled here, the council sought to encourage projects which would really draw people downtown. They gave examples like housing, hotels, arts and entertainment venues. And so when you look at these goals and then look at the development that we end up with, it's nice to see that those goals kind of came through. So again, here's an example of the project goals, which are just a little bit more specific to what they'd like to see in those proposals. So again, I'll just call it a few examples. That second bullet point there, they specifically, Class A office space was identified as a priority, so that's specifically called out. The third bullet point down, they just note that it is a high visibility location, so a bit more elevated kind of architectural quality was desired there. And then in those last couple bullet points as well, you see where they outline their desires for residential mix and affordability levels if there are any residential uses proposed in the project. So just like the RISE, in the Chauncey RFP, they had also identified a general review process, so the proposal respondents could anticipate how their proposal would be evaluated going forward. You'll remember in the RISE, they included that really specific evaluation criteria, less specific here, but still, again, provided that criteria against which proposals would be judged. And again, I think as much as you include here, until you receive those proposals and see what the quantity and quality is, there's probably needs to be a little bit of flexibility in that process. So again, the submittal requirements, this is just a summary. You can find that full detail beginning on page 16 of the Chauncey RFP. That was included in your information packet. This is very similar to what was included in that RISE RFP, but should give you an idea of what's asked of the respondents to include, and I would anticipate is probably pretty similar to what we might ask for in 21 South Linn. So just like the RISE, I've included a couple slides that I will go through a little bit more quickly since you've seen one example. But these are just kind of screenshots of what was included in the proposal submitted by the Chauncey developers. I will note, you'll remember back that there was only a 30-day response period for this project. And so as you see some of these screenshots and then look out the window, it's kind of amazing to see just how similar the project really was based on this initial 30-day proposal. So whether that's typical, I guess I don't know, but just something I thought I'd point out. So here you see they kind of include narrative description of just how that development, what the project is, and how it would kind of integrate into its surroundings. They include a little bit of an architectural description. They provide that high-level breakdown of uses, and then some concept renderings to help illustrate what they envisioned for the project. Just a couple more screenshots of some of those renderings that were included, site layouts. So again, these were included in the initial proposal, really similar to that final design. One key difference that I'll point out, you'll see on the left picture that initial proposal proposed a 20-story building, and then the final product, I think, is 15 stories. So was a little bit of a change in that way. Just another example of, on the left is a layout that was included in that initial proposal in 2012, and then on the right is building plans that were approved in 2016. So for the most part, very similar, some minor differences. I think, just looking at it, you can see that space for fix isn't quite carved out here. Maybe the use of that room just to the north of Spare Me is a little bit different between them. But for the most part, this is an example in which there wasn't a ton of tweaking and changes from that initial proposal. Here's just an example of how you might see maybe kind of those conceptual square footages shown. So they break down, what they anticipate for parking, retail, office, hotel, residential. Here's an example of their estimated timeline. Looks like about 3.5 years they had anticipated. Took a little bit longer, but gives you an idea. And then in this project, TIF was requested, so they had requested that gap financing amount. I believe in this project they had requested looks like $13.4 million in this initial proposal. The final development agreement was $12 million, so I'm guessing with those stories being shaved off the top, that maybe impacted that total project cost and some of that. But in general, just that it is getting refined over time. So we already talked through kind of what that review process looked like, again, for the Chauncey, so I won't review this in depth, but just a reminder, they had a 30-day response period, 10 received, review committee recommended 5. They had those semifinalists present to council. They did hire a third party to do a little bit of analysis on those, and then using that information, council narrowed to 3 finalists and then ultimately selected a preferred proposal. So this just kind of shows you at this time that council had really dedicated November, December, early January meetings to just kind of working through this evaluation, again, in public work session settings, evaluating those finalists, and ultimately reaching their decision about a preferred proposal. Similarly, they had incorporated several opportunities for public input throughout the process. So they had made those proposals available online for public review. They encouraged comment through email, mail, typical correspondence channels, and then all of that was routinely forwarded to the city council as it was received, so that kind of the public input gathering was almost ongoing. And then of course, at that November 2012 work session is when they invited those semifinalists to give those presentations, do a bit of Q&A with the city council. All of that was live streamed, and then they had a special agenda item at a meeting in December of 2012 in which they had scheduled to solicit verbal public input based on those presentations that had occurred the meeting prior. So as I mentioned in this example, the city had hired the National Development Council to do an independent third-party financial analysis of those 5 semifinalists. Just some benefits of this is that it is an independent third party who doesn't have a stake in the project. And also they have that expertise to provide technical assistance on the financial analysis that maybe we don't have in-house. So in this case, that NDC actually advised that at the stage that they had been initially engaged, they couldn't really provide a super meaningful depth of analysis, but they were able to at least provide enough feedback that council could kind of continue to narrow. And then they also were able to provide guidance on, hey, here's the things you might want to be asking of these developers as you continue this evaluation process. So as we kind of move into thinking about 21 South Linn, the option to contract with NDC or a similar firm would certainly be a possibility. Again, I think it will just depend on what's received in terms of proposals and just how that evaluation process kind of unfolds.
Can I ask a quick question? Is there some rationale for why NDC wasn't contracted for the RISE? I just wonder, is this kind of a standard best practice, or?
We have typically used the NDC to assist with TIF agreements, not just the Chauncey, but multiple TIF agreements. We didn't necessarily anticipate TIF with RISE. I think we went in thinking it was going to be more of a sale, and the city's goal was to maximize that sale price and that future property tax. So we didn't feel like we needed NDC,
Gotcha.
especially at that early stage of the RISE.
Thanks.
For the Chauncey, then after that, preferred proposal was selected. Again, kind of those traditional redevelopment steps that you're probably more familiar with began. So again, we had, as Jeff mentioned, we brought in NDC to assist with their financial analysis for the TIF portion. Just got into the negotiations with the developer, and then ultimately we're able to develop that development agreement, get it approved by the city council, and make the land transfers so that they could move into construction. So in this case, the time from when that RFP was issued to when a preferred proposal was selected was about 6 months. Here you see, you'll remember last time in the RISE, very quick turnaround to that development agreement. Here, a little bit longer, partially because they were requesting some city financial incentives. And then the time from when the RFP was issued to completed construction is 8 years. So as I mentioned, always some level of unanticipated delay, but in general, it's important to just maintain that context of how long these processes can be. And this is just kind of another visual of what that looks like. So with those examples in front of you, then we thought we'd kind of move into discussing just the 21 South Linn Street process. So really my goal is just to kind of introduce a general process for moving forward on the 21 South Linn developer selection. So a couple of objectives that we viewed as important. First, it's very important that we establish a transparent, predictable process. This is important not just for those who are responding to the RFP, but for staff, for council, for the public, and for any other stakeholders who are involved. We intend to incorporate meaningful stakeholder and public involvement throughout the process. And then, of course, the ultimate goal is to obtain some sort of public-private partnership which incorporates significant public benefits, of which would be defined and prioritized by you all. So here is kind of an outline or a timeline of how we would like to move forward with 21 South Linn. So that first phase, which would begin kind of after today's meeting, would involve us going back, kind of putting together a public engagement plan. We would bring that back to you for approval, and then to just get the go-ahead to go out and execute that. We anticipate we'd probably work closely, with the Iowa City Downtown District, Greater Iowa City, community, some of those direct stakeholders, and then also try to make this an inclusive public engagement process to kind of hear from some of those diverse cross-sections of the community who maybe haven't been involved in a development process like this before, or at least been asked to share their ideas. And then we would compile all of those, again, bring them back to City Council and present those to you. So we envision that you all, City Council, would help kind of inform what you'd like to see out of the public engagement process. I'm sure there'll be opportunities for you to be involved in a listening session or something similar, but it probably would involve a mix of in-person, online types of engagement. So we anticipate that could be wrapped up by summer, that kind of whole develop the public engagement plan, execute, and compile the results. And then in the summer, we could hopefully move into, so June to kind of August range, we could kind of move into setting those goals. So again, this would likely happen in a public work session where you develop those goals, you develop a review process, and then we can start to identify what we'd like that RFP to look like. Here is kind of where you might identify any specific public benefits, specific mixes of uses, sustainability features, affordable housing, anything like that would be important for us to include and for the developers who are responding to know. And I also anticipate those goals would be based on probably the public input that we heard, and then any established master plans like the downtown or your strategic plan as well, just to maintain continuity there. So at this stage, you'd also identify that review process and evaluation criteria, again, kind of as a guiding framework for how proposals would move through that evaluation process. And then based on that direction, staff would go ahead, develop that RFP. We'd get the green light on that final before it's issued, but our goal would be that by September, October, we could look to actually issue that RFP. And then we anticipate kind of 45, 60-day response period. And then, of course, after all those RFP responses are received, we could move into that review process that was previously established. So this is exactly what I just showed you, but just kind of calling out again, so you kind of understand like where that City Council demand might be. Of course, it kind of ebbs and flows through the process. In some cases, staff might do a little more legwork to kind of move things forward. Then it comes back to council and so on. But in that public engagement phase, really, I think you'll have an opportunity to, again, let us know what you'd like to see during public engagement. You would kind of approve that final public engagement plan, be involved, of course, in it and hearing from the public, and then we would present any results to you. In that phase 2 kind of RFP development stage, of course, we would use a work session or a couple work sessions, whatever, to kind of set goals and so that you can provide guidance and priorities that you'd like included in that RFP. And then we would, again, want to get the green light from you before a final version of the RFP was issued. And then it'd kind of be on staff's backs to then actually handle issuing that RFP and accepting the responses before we move into that review phase. So then it kind of showing the exact same thing, but with some of the public input opportunities published. So like some of the past processes, I think there obviously is going to need to be multiple points of public engagement opportunities. So anytime, of course, that the items on the work session agenda, they would have those public input opportunities through their traditional correspondence or public comment periods. Similar to the Chauncey, we would want to be making those proposals available online with kind of a dedicated feedback channel, whether that's an email or whatever it is, and then making sure we're keeping that updated as those proposals are kind of narrowed and refined. So that being said, this is kind of what we might see as next steps following this presentation today. So if this process that we've kind of outlined feels comfortable with you all, we would go ahead, go back, prepare that public engagement plan to bring back to you in maybe February or early March, and then we would have you just approve of that public engagement plan, kind of, again, give us that go ahead to execute.
First of all, thank you. Quite a presentation, quite a job compiling the materials in the packet, so thank you to staff for that. One of the things that I appreciate but then wonder how well it worked, the scoring system that was used in some of the previous. Looks good on paper. I don't remember exactly, some of this stuff was before I was really engaged in city politics. How did it work? Like, did it meet the goals that we had hoped, or was there some slippage? I would imagine there would be some, but just kind of how well it worked. I don't know, Jeff, if you were...
Well, it probably
assistance?
depends on who you ask, to be honest. Would be some that say it worked fine, and there'd be some that probably disagreed, depending on which side of the argument they may have been on. I think it's very important to be clear to the community and the developers that are proposing on what criteria they're going to be looking, what criteria we're going to be judging them on. Whether you want to put in specific points or not, I think there's debates, you know, either you can kind of fall on either side of that. The scoring system in the Chauncey was hotly kind of debated, and that's still a point of contention with some that recall that process. But I think it's most important just to focus on that exact kind of criteria that you're going to be looking at. I wouldn't be so focused on the weighting system itself.
Thank you.
For the public engagement, since it's going to be the first step that the staff will be preparing for us, can you just give us like what kind of questions, or is this a survey you're going to ask the public? How are you going to engage with them? Like what previously has been done? How you reach out to the community? Because from my experience, I see like certain people in this community make the decision, especially when it comes to downtown. You know, I don't think like being reach out to all the people in this community. Especially everything is in English at the end of the day. So can you tell me what you think will be before us to discuss it? Because we don't want to just like make you do everything and come to us here, and after that we say, oh, you should have done this and this and this. If you can give us some ideas about normally what the kind of public engagement you do, is this a survey, questionnaire, what it is?
Sure. I can start, and if Jeff has other thoughts. So we haven't given a ton of thought to that yet, right? Because that's the next step in the process. But I would anticipate, like I mentioned, it's probably a number of ways. So we would do maybe a couple in-person kind of listening sessions, and we could be strategic about where those are located and, you know, how we're promoting those. And then, of course, there would be some sort of online digital-based form of feedback. So whether that's a survey or whether it's some prompting questions and an email, I do think you're right. Just making sure that we are providing the public some level of background, so they're not just going into this like, what's going on here? And then maybe providing some guiding questions to help spark their ideas and help them think about what they would like to see at that corner.
Yes. Yeah, I just would like to be creative this time. Mm-hmm. So I think, you know, I would love to see the whole community participate. And even we don't have to put something online and just wait for the community to come and just like fill out those questionnaire or maybe tell us what they want to see. Do you know that there's some people in this community, even they don't know that they have this power, they can come and tell you what to do there. So I think, you know, just let's talk about this more and try to engage the whole community, even if we can go where they're at, to do like information session about it or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Thanks for the feedback.
Scoring is always a hard thing to do. And I appreciated that question that you brought up, Councilor Harmson. One of the, as you were talking and I was looking at the scoring, one thing that I didn't see, and I don't know where it is, if it's even possible, but subcontractors will be used on a lot of these projects. And I wonder if there's any type of scoring opportunities for people who use like targeted small businesses, which is for minorities, which is a wide scale, who fits in that definition. So I wonder if there's any opportunities within the scoring to kind of take that into account. I know Davis-Bacon is something that we often have to do for the city, but if that's, and I know that drives up the cost, but if those are some of the considerations that we can have in the scoring process, I think it might be advantageous.
Yeah, sorry. Again, we just wanted to kind of show you examples today of like what has been done in the past. Hopefully that provides you a starting point. But then once we get to that phase of deciding what's in the RFP is probably where we'd want to have those detailed conversations if that's something you'd want to include or what other criteria you'd want to include in the scoring.
Yeah, the one thing I would just point out, at the RFP stage, it's probably not realistic to think that the developers are going to have their full construction team assembled. They might not even have a general contractor identified at that stage. So you typically would get into those types of details at a development agreement phase. And unfortunately, you're going to be swimming uphill with state law on, the city being able to dictate contractor terms, even if we have financial incentives in there, and we can cover all that down the road. But I just think at that RFP stage, you're going to be hard pressed to have development proposals that are prepared to go into that level of detail.
And it was number 2 that I was looking at, the developer experience and capabilities.
So Rachel, this public engagement, since we've been discussing it after the presentation, there was some indication that we would be talking about programming and vision for the building. That's the aspect of this opportunity that I'm really interested in is, what's the vision we have as a community for this project? And so that we frame it in such a way that it is sort of welcoming this idea that this is a community vision, and the programming would flow from that vision. And the process of engagement would be structured to try to elicit what that vision is.
Sure. So when we acquired the property, I think the idea or the kind of high-level vision was that some sort of mixed-use building at this corner would be important. Just knowing, City Council's goals, some of our partners' goals, like the downtown district, a residential component, maybe some ground floor, a couple ground level. Floors of retail or commercial space. So I think we're open to, again, there's a wide variety of uses allowed in that zoning designation. So again, just kind of evaluating what the top priorities are as we move through this, both for the city council, the public, and stakeholders.
I think that's going to be part of the job. Through this process, the council is going to have a number of very difficult decisions, and you should expect that through the public input process, you are going to hear a lot of different ideas. Developing a consensus may not be very easy. You'll hear everything from leave it as is and build a park to, build an entertainment use to a hotel to all affordable housing. You're going to have the gamut there, and you're going to have to make that difficult decision. But that's the hope in the RFP, is that we can get to a point where we feel good about articulating those goals. And I think the example that Rachel shared with the Chauncey was really good. There were some high-level goals in there about arts and entertainment uses, about attracting more visitors and lodging. The council was able to kind of focus in and say, these are 4 or 5 uses that we think are needed downtown. Either they don't exist or maybe are underserved, so to speak. I use the example of the hotel. You may look at downtown now and think, well, there's plenty of hotels. Well, at the time the Chauncey RFP was issued, the Hilton Garden Inn hadn't been built, and we didn't have the Element and the Hyatt, and there was a lot of that missing. So that was a goal at the time. I don't necessarily predict that will be the same priority for the council this go around. So we'll do our best to solicit those ideas, make sure we're hitting that cross section in the community, and work through the goal setting with you. But to your point, Councilor Thomas, I hope we can get to that clear vision on what we hope for this site.
I appreciate what you just said, Jeff, about knowing that we're going to be hearing so many different points of view and recommendations. And I remember I paid the most attention to the Chauncey process at the time and less so to the Rise. But can you give us a sense, if you know of, at the different decision points for the council, knowing consensus was hard to get, and I remember remember a lot of those controversies, but were the decisions along the way typically split votes, unanimous? Like, do you have a sense of sort of where those, how that fell out?
I couldn't recall each individual kind of stage, but there was, I think it's fair to say there was difference of opinions throughout the process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One good thing is we'll have individuals like Mayor Throckmorton that sit in the audience to kind of jog some memories on some of these.
Yeah, there were, particularly with the Chauncey, there was quite a number of contentious meetings.
Right. At one point, there was a sitting council member who was engaged in active litigation against the city regarding the height and the shadow that would be cast from the Chauncey. So I think Jeff is probably understating a little bit about the contentiousness that was present at some parts of that discussion.
That's what we're signing up for. Hopefully not that specifically.
Hopefully not that.
that.
I would love to
but
have no council members actively engaged in litigation against the city.
It seems like a threshold we can reach. But.
I'm also really, and I haven't really looked into this concept of a model, what, in terms of trying to help think about what this building could be, to look for models. That somewhere out there may be some projects, we've seen some that were in Iowa City as references that may offer some trigger inspiration with regard to the vision for our projects, that have a mix of uses that really just work magic in terms of creating that sense of place and community. And I know that's very possible on certain types of projects. I'm not as familiar with this mixed use development like this. But that's something I would be very interested in, is what, there's got to be examples out there that kind of check all the boxes in terms of equity and energy efficiency and creating the right mix of common spaces, common public spaces, and commercial activity and so forth, that I would love to explore that personally. I think it would be a lot of fun thinking about the possibilities that it would offer.
I think, too, with all the comments about, the challenges that face us, and maybe this is just because this is my last meeting as a member of the freshman class on the council. See you in January, Josh. So maybe I'm still have that optimism, but I'm actually really excited about this. I think we've got a lot of challenges. We'll hear a lot of input, but the potential for this project still is something that, this is to me, when I see this on the agenda, this is something that really gets me excited, because I know we can do a lot of good things with this that weren't possibilities that we thought were even on our radar possible a year ago. So it's kind of a cool thing that's developed this year that I think has got such great potential. And I'm personally very excited about that, and I appreciate the work that's been done so far to get us to this point.
I mean, this is, in my mind, ground zero in the downtown. I mean, and it's the former City Hall site. It's clearly a power site. So the Chauncey, the Rise, we're not at the center of things in the way that this lot is, and it doesn't have the history. That Linn Street there was the civic center of Iowa City. You had the library, the City Hall. What else? There was
Post office.
The post office. So that was the civic corridor
Back then,
right
yeah.
there. So there is that resonates still, in my view, that particular location is a very special location.
For all those things that Council Thomas just said, I think I see this as like really important location, and that we really have to make sure, as somebody mentioned, the boxes are all checked, and that we do it right, and that we do utilize the public input and do the right thing and get it right the first time.
Actually, I was tipped to this because of all of the conversations that the council has brought up in terms of public input, not necessarily that would go the same route as the master plan for Parks and Rec and for the pools. However, that kind of outreach and that methodology of sort of finding different focus groups and that effort, I think, ended up being so successful that might be a way to sort of do an overlay without necessarily incurring the same expense and the length of time that it takes to do all of that. But that could be used to borrow Councilor Thomas's language. That could be a model for how outreach could happen to get input from a much more diverse sections of the community. So it's just food for thought.
Thanks. That prompts a question about staff capacity. I was thinking about how we often have consultants who assist in those aspects of a project of scale and importance. Is that something that we're considering here?
Yeah, I think we would wait until after the goal setting is done and kind of understand where council's going. If it appears that there's going to be a significant demand for public benefit, right? The programming components of the building that aren't going to pay the bills, so to speak, then we're probably going to want to get the NDC or another firm on to help us with some of the financial analyses, because it's probably going to require some sort of tax increment financing. If, on the other hand, the goals are more focused on private programming, and we don't necessarily think that city subsidy may be needed, then we may not. So I think ask that again in June and July, and we'll probably have a clearer answer.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, thank you all. So we'll go ahead and get to work on a public engagement plan. You've all provided some helpful feedback and bring it back to you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to USG presentation of Renter's Guide.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
Let me pull up the meeting notes here quick. Pull this set up.
Flash from the past.
No, it's great to see you all again.
Yes.
Had to dig him out of the grave for this. The present button. Do you know where the present button is? Am I going crazy? The present button. What? Am I crazy?
No.
Do I need to full screen that?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Oh, we can't even present. What? No, present right here. Look up there. There you go. Go all the way back. There you go. Awesome. Well, we'll finally get to this. I know it's usually presented sometimes earlier, sometimes later. Luckily, we got it done right in the time for the end of the year. So this is the 2023 Renter's Guide. It took Keaton, Matthew, and I a long while. Coding is not really my thing. And so luckily, Keaton and Matthew kind of understood it a lot better. So they really helped me with this. But, I mean, yeah, we'll get right into it. Let's see. There we go. Awesome. So a lot of this data that you guys will be seeing tonight, this one's a really wordy slide, sorry, but we'll try to keep following along with it. So a lot of the methodology and how we did this was we took 50% of the responses. So everyone who filled out the form more than 50% of the way got their actual data into most of these statistics. Now, the first slide is mostly non-refined. So this is anyone and everyone who just filled out at least one question, really. And so you'll see some stats, hopefully through this, of how many percentages. Inside the actual published Renter's Guide, not just this presentation, they will have the unrefined data and then the refined data later. So you guys are basically just getting the refined data, which has the most important points, in my opinion, because these are the people that actually filled out at least more than a majority of the Renter's Guide itself. So that's just really important to note. Overall, we had 603 respondents. just anyone who answered one. But about 71% actually filled out more than half the questions. There were about 38 questions in total. Not all of them were required, but more than that. So yeah, Keaton, if you would like to take away the first part of the methodology here.
Yep. So for data to be considered or otherwise omitted, a landlord property management company had to have at least 5 responses to be included in the actual visual data, as you'll see in the columns that we're going to have presented later. And then 91.82% were undergraduates, and 8% were graduate or professional students. And then in total, a quarter of responses identified as first generation, non-traditional, international, veteran, or transfer students, which is really good. And then many of these students are between the ages of 19 and 24. And then disproportionately, responses were from white respondents versus BIPOC students. We saw 81.24% white students this year. Comparatively to last year, there was 74.9%.
No, actually, sorry. That one was, no, you're good. Actually, this year we only saw about 75% were white compared to last year's were 81. No, never mind. You were correct. I'm sorry. I'm getting my data mixed up. There's a later point in the actual renter's guide about the differences. But sorry, my apologies. I'm sorry. I got confused.
All right, then of responses from, sorry, where were we at?
It was the outreach, basically.
We're planning to outreach to more BIPOC communities in a continued goal of USG. And then the data on income expenditures on housing vary greatly. This is a messy data set that could be missing some accuracy, but nearly 48% of the 361 respondents with a 30% variation in the normal response rate. And then landlords' trust is a perpetual issue that we're seeing, and many respondents claimed they would not recommend their landlord or leasing agency to a friend. And then we had mixed responses on if the respondent would rent from the owner again.
Yeah, I mean, the responses from the general data were really, I'm going to go back actually, were really crazy to me, especially because there was such high standard deviation. So the percentage from, so 48% was our average for everyone who responded to that question. So it was 361 people. I think it's really important to note that that's more than half your income really goes to rent on average, because there are people that are paying 70%, but there are also people paying about 10% of their income. And so it really generates this really good question of where different students are, because think of a student that's living in rise luxury apartments versus one who is on the very outskirts of town in a really small duplex with like 6 roommates. My girlfriend last year was that way. I don't know anyone living in Rise, but I can imagine that there's probably a really big difference, especially when you go to the same public university here. It's just, I don't know. It's a really good question to ponder for who we represent as the student body. And this also goes down to the same thing of landlord trust. You would expect that the more money you pay, the more you can trust your landlord. That's just kind of like a simple common logic thing. As you kind of get going through some of these graphs, especially in the published data with the where it's like unrefined, there were a lot of people not really willing to, but then those from the refined data were more willing to. It's a lot of mixed responses in this of where you can kind of see the lines if you parse it all out. But that hits us with the most important question, I believe, tonight. What is the average rent for those respondents? So the average rent this year was about $652.08 per month. So you can see the breakdown here on the right. You can see, I believe it is, Rise at Riverfront Crossing is the most expensive. It far surpasses anyone else. But you can also see Rentals Iowa City, the Quarters, Watts Group, all those are on the very far end. So later in the alphabet, you see the higher up you get, weirdly enough. But compared to last year's data, which actually there were more responses in last year's data, but last year's data had a $40 difference. So that means on annual, it was about $500-ish in general going up. This is a lot of money for a student. I know that I do not have $500 sitting around just for that each year. That's for sure. Yeah, if you would like to cover maintenance.
Yep. So for the frequency of emergency maintenance requests, it seems as though there are a couple of parties that stand out in the visual in the visual, quite significantly have a higher frequency of emergencies, as you can see in the graphs. And then it's important to observe which agencies have more emergency maintenance requests. And additionally, prospective tenants advocate to be shown the unit they are interested in renting, if possible, prior to signing. We have a graph up there for that. You wanna add
Yeah,
anything?
I mean, that's kind of it on that one. So, landlord responsiveness. So, obviously, as you live in an apartment or anywhere, you're going to have incidents happen, whether they're just like a broken light bulb or, you know, your kitchen sink is flooding everywhere. We kind of noticed on this one that their results were, some of them did actually have like pretty decent response time to emergency ones, but a lot of them are pretty similar, if not sometimes slower on average. It is important to note that the emergency one only goes up to 4 days responses, whereas the left one only for general responses goes up to 5 in total. So that is important to note, just the differences, because it can look like the one on the right is higher. But overall, both of them were just on average about the same. So whether responsiveness wasn't that high of a priority, I would like to have seen more responsiveness, especially during emergency ones. But yeah, I think that's overall. And then, let's see. Yeah, I think that's it on that. Oh, I can cover this one too, sorry. This is one that we kind of threw together. On the actual renter's guide itself, you will see that the red bar ones are just the unrefined data. There's a whole bunch of those in there. But one of our big questions this year was recycling and stuff like that. It's just another way of being sustainability. It's one of our main goals in USG. We have an entire committee committed to it. We are seeing that there are some places with 100%, like each respondent had a recycling unit, but there are still some in the 40s and kind of in the 60s too, which isn't good because recycling should just be a standard across Iowa City, and I believe it is as well. There are forms to fill that out, but I don't know if students know too well about that, so we're working on how to kind of tackle this issue. Another big one that I wanted to note now and then look at later in the future when Matthew does this is transportation. So we saw that walking is one of our biggest ways of transportation across campus. I mean, obviously, Iowa City and the University of Iowa are like right next to each other. But we also saw private car usage really high. And CAN bus usage, though, was also our third highest ranking one, which is awesome. We love that. But I want to put a pin in that because I want to see Iowa City buses go up to that, too. You can see that the Iowa City buses one was our 5th highest response, but we're really hoping that it can get up to the 3rd or 4th. But we'd also love to see bicycling go up as well. Basically, our biggest one for student government is to have driving go down. We have a really close campus. A lot of people do live somewhat close to town. We want to have alternative methods, and so we're here to advocate for that as well. Oh, yeah. If you would like to,
Okay.
I mean, yeah, you can hit the conclusions.
All right, then to kind of wrap up everything, unaffordable housing is a major issue in Iowa City, in the Iowa City area in general, with many respondents reporting financial strain due to high living expenses. And then many respondents also noted that problems in their rental property were inadequately addressed. In many cases, this has resulted in partial to no return in their security deposits, and landlords engaged in predatory financial actions. Student renters do not have the same voice as city and university officials. The city and university leaders should vocalize shared tenant concerns and work to increase the public barriers of renters by clarifying policy and engaging in more discourse about landlords and property requirements.
We would love any questions, but to kind of hammer home the points is that at the end of the renter's guide, I put in quite a few quotes that were given back from respondents. They were allowed to put in anything they would like. Security deposit return, we didn't have good enough data to properly quantify it, break down per security deposit returns, but there are some really good unrefined data, as well as I believe one graph that is refined. We will obviously send out the published version once it's done. It should be sent out tonight. I'm sending out the comms request, but you guys get the first look at it. Overall, the quotes, I believe in it, if you look through them, there are some of them that are very damning with what students live with. One of the big ones I kept seeing always is that they didn't even know their landlord. They never met him, never even talked to him. maybe got a text or an email, but never saw them. One person lived with bats living right next to their house not in their house, sorry, in their ceiling the whole time. No response for an entire year. I mean, the predatory financial actions come through this students being viewed as this migratory body. It can be said about many students. You know, many students come here from who knows where and stay for 4 years, if not even shorter, and then leave and never think about Iowa City besides a party city that's here. But there are many, many great things about Iowa City, and I think that the living situation can make or break what Iowa City means to them. Ultimately, the conditions that students live in outside of the dorms is unique per place. There's no like single bad guy here in this situation. All of these places do not have their high points. Some of these places do have a lot of high points. There are a couple quotes in there that are not only damning. There are some that are like, hey, my rental company does this really well or does that really well. But there are a lot of them that are not so great. It's hard for students also to advocate because they are a migratory body. They feel like they don't really have that connection. So that's kind of our role here is by presenting this renter's guide. We're hoping to get it out as soon as possible. Many renters sign their leases or either re-sign or sign leases in October and November, and I'm kind of upset I didn't get it there. I know I had to sign my lease in October with 2 guys that I'd lived with for 2 months at most, you know, and luckily I love my roommates, but I know many people don't have that same experience or else live in bigger apartments and need more roommates and more stuff, and ultimately the costs come down on them. Not everyone has a really, really well-off family. So it's just really important. I will send out a copy to every single counselor, current and previous, here today. So it's just very important to note. We would love any questions.
Cool.
If there is anything.
Thank you so much for doing this. This is great work. I do have a couple of quick questions for you. I was going to ask about getting the data, but you're going to send that to us. So
Yes.
that's an
Yeah.
easy answer. You'd mentioned that the average rent was $652.
Yes.
Was that for like a person with a single apartment average, or you could be 6 people with sharing, basically paying for a bedroom?
Yeah, basically paying for a bedroom is kind of the way we were able to break it down. We weren't able to. One way that I'm trying to figure out is for next year, I have a couple future questions, and I would love if anyone has any future questions, like to be put on the renter's guide, I would love those as well. I'm thinking about adding in one about laundry, because clean clothes are really important. This is just basically just for bedrooms. You know, this could be $652 could be one dude living in a house of 12 people, but it could also be one person living in a single studio bedroom downtown somewhere. So basically anywhere in between.
Yeah, and you have some longitudinal data from last year previous to this year. One thing, and I think we talked about this before, is if you have data going back over multiple years, any of these trend lines, that would be something that when you talk about students not having a voice, you can certainly go back to UISG and say, this information is really important for members of this council, and this is actually a great way to have data to back up stuff. And the more longitudinal that data is over multiple years, I think the more powerful that is for us to come up with, paints a much clearer picture of the situation. So thank you for all of this work.
Yeah, of course. We're going to try pushing out our next one, obviously, by May to have that done over the summer like we did this year. Yeah, we're really hoping to get some actual data, like to compare years and years and years here. So,
thank you.
Thank you for collecting all this data. I love the graphs. I love to see graphs because you really can see the ups and the downs. But one thing I'm noticing, especially on this graph on the average monthly rent, and you'd mentioned that some renters have never seen their landlord. But looking at this list of apartments, it seems as though a lot of those are, I hesitate to call them predatory, but it's outside companies that not even the Iowa City area or even in Iowa that own these buildings. So it's no wonder that they're invisible landlords. I don't know if there's any way that you can kind of capture that data in the future, that how many of those are actual like local, because we do have some local landlords that are reputable or have housing complexes here. But noticing a lot of these, I think, quite a few of those are ones that are not local.
Yeah, and I will say, I believe I have some of the quotes too, but there was it was in the mainly unrefined data, but there was like the other category, which was usually, so I only, if you're a rental, if the rental company is up there, it had 5 or more responses in total. So there were a lot that only had like 4 or 3, but a lot of them were smaller landlord companies or like my like friend's roommate's dad or something like that. It's something like crazy like that. But there were some like really good ones. Mainly small and local ones were actually pretty caring. But I think that going forward, we should probably look into where these companies originate or have bases and stuff like that. I think that's a good point. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Something you mentioned was like the advocacy part, that we can use our voices and other leaders can use their voices. Thinking about the individual advocacy for students who have issues with their landlords, does the guide separate out things that are actually like violations of the law that they should go to student legal services, or potentially, that there was an Iowa Legal Aid partnership, so that they can get, like, for example, withholding parts of the security deposit often not lawful, the entering without 24 hours notice when it's not an emergency, not lawful. Are there mechanisms for that?
I do. We have a info slide on there about student legal services. That is one of our greatest assets for, the university, I guess, and renting, most specifically. I should probably look into more of the legality of all of this. I don't know if it's illegal to enter 24 hours before, but if it is, I would like to look into it. Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, didn't know that. I'm sorry.
Unless it's specified in the contract.
Unless it's specified in the contract? Okay.
So maybe in the future, just kind of like a know your rights aspect to it, of like this data, we saw these, really when you're talking about predatory practices.
One of the parts I did look into legally was the how much they were allowed to charge you for your security deposit, and it is legally up to 2 months of the security deposit, which is a crazy one, because in the raw data it had, or maybe even in the the refined data itself, there was a graph of what percentage you got back. That'll be in the published report. I forgot to add that to this, but it was most of them were no more than like 40 to 50%, I believe, which I believe that the mysterious nature of getting your security deposit back led to many quotes that I didn't put in, really questioning that and asking a lot on that. But yeah, I'll look into the legality more of that, and I'd love to continue that.
Thank you.
Thank you for the work. This is very impressive. Have you are you planning to send it to the university administration, perhaps the regents? This is a really, really important issue that all public entities should be aware of, and I think it is underreported and not understood. And yet, as you were saying, it's kind of foundational to the university experience, and it's sort of hidden from view.
Yeah, Keaton, you know more about the Board of Regents. Would it be possible to send it to them? Like, what would you recommend doing as GR director?
Yeah, so with that, we actually, at our first Board of Regents student leadership breakfast that we had, I think during the summer, I think it was, we actually talked about some of these things, so like well-being, like student accessibility. I'd love to bring that back up. Right now, we're talking about a lot of things going on that aspect, but I'd love for us to composite the annually reports, as mentioned by Councilor Harmson, because I think that data is showing the increase over time, especially like post-COVID, how much everything's increased, would be very educational to bring forward to them.
I also have some magnets to give to you.
We still have like a whole bunch in the office too, but I would love to take them back because I kind of want to get those back out and about. Okay. I know I have multiple of them in my apartment.
Well, thanks to both of you for coming to do this presentation. Very informative. So thank you so much.
Of course, thank you.
Yes.
To give them the opportunity to do that.
All right. We're going to move on to item number 4, clarification of agenda items.
Mayor, I failed to write it down, but I'll be recusing myself on the consent agenda. I don't think it's a consent agenda. The mobile home park item, just to let you know on that one.
So we will separate that one out.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Anything else from the formal agenda? Hearing nothing, and that's item 5G.
Thank you.
Great. We're going to move on to information packets, November 22nd, and this is item number 5 on our agenda. November 30th. And December 7th. So I do have one from there. There's probably 2. But IP6, that's the memo from our Climate Action Coordinator on the whole home electrification housing choice voucher program. This will be for landlords. This is a phenomenal opportunity. I think as you read the IP, it talked about some of the benefits of doing this program. I think the greatest benefit is really allowing landlords to understand the importance of climate action and what they can do, and I think these incentives allow for that. In addition, it also will increase housing choice voucher users to, I think it would entice landlords to participate in that program or enhance their participation. So this is really great. It's going to be talking about heat pumps for some of the landlords to learn more about that, because I think a lot of people don't understand what the heat pump water heater is, or the heat pump for heat is, and some electrical water pumps. And so it's going to be a great opportunity. I also want to mention that our climate action team is making headway across the nation. So many of you know that the City of Iowa City is involved with the Mayor's Innovation Project that happens throughout the entire year, having different programs. And this January, we were invited to Washington, D.C., and our wonderful coordinator, Sarah, has agreed to go and speak on some of the things that we're doing here. And so this just goes to show that we're doing great things where people are looking, and there are mayors that are wanting to know more about what Iowa City is doing to electrify and to decarbonize within our community.
Mm-hmm. Mayor, I did have an item that's kind of with our assigned commissions update, but also just to come to a pending work session topic. As I'm serving on the JEC board, and they're talking about the different ways in which now that they have more staffing up dispatchers and different kinds of response and that sort of thing. So you and I had talked recently about maybe having a conversation relating to the different types of response and what can be dispatched. So I talked with Jeff about this as well. So just wondering if there's enough counselors who might be interested in having an update on different types of crisis response and what's available in the community in the next couple of months.
We have sufficient, so we'll put it on a future work session. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Yes. Any other items from information packet December 7th? I will just note that, and I don't know which information packet it is, about the Ashton House. That's going to be great. What's going to be happening there. So thanks to the Parks and Rec Commission that foresee a great opportunity, bringing greater programs happening in that house. We're going to move on to item number 6, which is University of Iowa updates, USG students. Government.
Long time no see.
Yes.
Yeah. So Matthew will be coming later tonight. He has an Asian religions final right now. Best of luck to him on that. Thank you again for the Renter's Guide presentation. That finally got done and will hopefully come out here not too long. Depends on how long our comms team can get to it. And we are planning on sending it to now the Board of Regents administration, basically anyone and everyone we can.
Good.
I'm even thinking about maybe giving the same similar presentation to student government if need be, because I would really like them to also pay attention to that more. So Keaton's here, of course, but Keaton just recently got back from DC the other day with our vice president and president himself. And they were talking to multiple elected reps, trying to understand what the Iowa representatives want from this, from the university really, and mental health, and all kinds of, the renter's checklist I don't think is going to be coming back, sadly, but a whole bunch of advocacy there. In fun news, Iowa football is going to be going to the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl on Jan 1st. Hopefully you're going to win against Tennessee after the Big Ten championship that we don't talk about.
And the marching band is back.
That's true. That's awesome. We'll love to see the shout out by Metallica as well. That was a whole, I don't know why they don't like our marching band. They're really good. I know multiple of them. If I seem a little scatterbrained or out of it, it is finals week.
It is.
We are in full swing. I have a Native American law and policy paper due tonight. Multiple finals all the way up till Friday. I'm one of the unlucky few. But that doesn't take away that winter break is still coming up, and so it'll be great. I'll be heading back to Kansas for a little bit, but that doesn't really inflict you guys. But I will still be checking my emails, doing any student government work. Matthew and I's main priorities over winter break is still working on the Narcan campaign. We're working really close with Community and Family Resources, Caleb Brooks, specifically to hopefully get people to get going. We have a couple of leads with Sports Column, Mesa Pizza, and we're going to be working with Donnelly's here soon because the owner is on the Iowa City Downtown District and seemed really receptive to the idea. And then I will also be working on planning Town Hall. Like last year, we'll probably be having it in Old Cap. More details to come, though, but just giving you all a heads up because we'd love to have you all there. It was really good last year, and I know that a lot of people that didn't even know the city councilors were like, oh, I really liked so-and-so, and we really had good points there. So I'm really, really excited for the future here. Just wanted to wish you all happy holidays, and see you next year, I guess. So
Yes.
thank you.
Good luck this week.
Yeah.
Yes. We're going to move on to item number 7, council updates on assigned boards, commissions, and committees.
Give us a break for
Yeah. Yeah, hearing nothing. We are adjourned on our work session, and we'll be back at 6 p.m. for our formal agenda.